All right, good evening, everyone. My name is Tony Mancuso, and I serve as the Communications and Outreach Senior Specialist for the Summer Health Professions Education Program. Tonight, I'm joined by Stephanie Vink, our Product Development Specialist 2, and Yasemin Raskar, who is one of our SHPEP Ambassadors. And tonight, we'll be going over the steps to success with the SHPEP application. So what is SHPEP? SHPEP is a free 6-week summer enrichment program for college freshmen and sophomore students that are interested in the health professions. The program is committed to strengthening the career development of underrepresented and/or economically disadvantaged students while preparing them for a successful career in the health professions. SHPEP's roots go back to 1989 with its first cohort of scholars. Due to the noted declines of medical school applicants from racial and ethnic backgrounds starting in 1977, the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation initiated a study in 1984 to learn strategies to change these trends. Findings contributed to the development of the Minority Medical Education Program to increase the acceptance rates of medical school applicants from racial and ethnic minority groups who are underrepresented in medicine. The Association of American Medical Colleges assumed the role of the National Program Office in 1993. In 2003, the program changed its name to the Summer Medical Education Program, reflecting the inclusion of students representing a range of economic, cultural, and geographic diversity. In 2006, the program expanded to include dentistry and was renamed the Summer Medical and Dental Education Program. The program began to focus on students in the first 2 years of their college education because the experience of previous programs indicated that this is when students derive the most benefit. And in 2016, in an effort to keep a pace of the growing importance of team-based care and interprofessional collaboration, the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation expanded the program to include a range of health professions and changed the program name to the Summer Health Professions Education Program, or what we know as today as SHPEP. SHPEP allows our scholars to explore the health professions, and these are the 7 health profession tracks that students can apply to: medicine, dentistry, nursing, optometry, pharmacy, physical therapy, and public health. And they can gain exposure virtually at any one of our 12 program sites listed on the screen. And they are Columbia University, Howard University, Rutgers, the State University of New Jersey, University of Alabama at Birmingham, University of California, Los Angeles and Charles R. Drew University, University of Florida, University of Iowa, University of Louisville, University of Nebraska, University of Texas Health Science Center at Houston, University of Washington, and last but not least, Western University of Health Sciences. Now, what are the benefits of this program? All students will receive a stipend, but more importantly, they'll receive guidance from current admissions deans, health professionals, students in health professions programs, and our alumni base about how to pursue their profession of interest. So what are our eligibility requirements? Students must be a high school graduate and currently enrolled as a freshman or sophomore in college. They must have a minimum overall college GPA of 2.5. They must be a U.S. citizen, a permanent resident, or have been granted DACA status by U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services. And last but not least, they could not have participated in the program previously. There are other factors for consideration, and those include identifying with a group that is racially and ethnically underrepresented in the health professions, coming from an economically or educationally disadvantaged background, or having demonstrated an interest in issues affecting underserved populations. Now, our program sites engage in what's called holistic review, which means they're looking at more than just your GPA, more than numbers. They want to know your story. So it's critically important for you to submit a compelling personal statement and a strong letter of recommendation. So what activities will students participate in during SHPEP? Well, they'll gain academic enrichment in the basic sciences and math, career development activities such as mock interviews or resume building, learning and study skills workshops, which will help students maximize working in individual and group settings, exposure to virtual clinical settings, workshops in financial planning and health policy, and interprofessional education that addresses effective collaboration across the health professions. I'll now turn it over to Stephanie Vink. She's going to give us more insight as to the resources that you can use when applying and a deeper dive into the application. Stephanie, take it away.
Thank you so much, Tony. Welcome, everyone. Thanks for joining us tonight. It's always great to hear like the history of the program and get more insight to it. So thanks for going over that. Before we jump into the application itself, I did want to highlight the website. We have a lot of good information there for everybody, particularly the program site page. So we have our 12 participating program sites here. If you haven't done it already, I would definitely give this a look over. The first thing you're going to notice is that every site kind of starts differently. The start and end dates will be different at each site. So make sure before you're applying to anything that you know when your program site will start. Another thing that's really cool on this page is you can use the filter section. So we do recommend, since we're going to be completely online this summer, that you maybe focus at least one site that you apply to in your region or time zone, and then kind of look at it that way, or just be very aware of the time zones that you are applying to make sure that you'll be able to participate correctly when they're offering the program. Anyways, back to the website though, you can filter out the sites by health profession type or the region or even their start dates. Another thing I wanted to point out is that we are, as Tony mentioned, interprofessional. So that means you're going to get exposure to other health professions. When you are applying, you can actually choose to apply different health professions. And that means something like this. Let's say you're interested in medicine and optometry. Well, you can apply. All sites actually have medicine and dentistry as an option. So you could apply mixed match, like Columbia as medical, Howard as medical, and then maybe you're interested in optometry, and then you can apply that at UAB. So just another way to look at it, but you will get exposure to multiple health professions throughout the course of the program. So let's go over the application itself and the requirements, the required materials. So you actually are only allowed to submit one application. On this application, you can choose up to 3 program sites. So that's what we were talking about when we say like, make sure one of them's in your time zone or be mindful of the time zones, etc. Then you do have a transcript requirement. So you'll need to have an official transcript sent in for every post-secondary institution you've attended or are attending. So that means if you maybe were in high school and did dual enrollment, you would need to actually list that on your application and then also get an official transcript to satisfy that requirement. You only need 1 copy though. So let's say you went to 3 different schools, you get 1 copy of each transcript sent in, and then we actually send that 1 application to the 3 program sites you would select on your application. Another point I wanted to say is if you're a freshman, I think grades are pretty much ready by now, but just be mindful not to send in your transcript too early before your grades are posted, because we'll have to mark it unofficial because we need at least a 1 semester grades to look at. I mean, the sites do. The next part of the application is the recommendation portion. We have suggestions on who you can choose. We would suggest a pre-health advisor or a college professor in your major field of study. Now, the program sites are very understanding that, you might be a freshman, you might not, have that kind of rapport yet. So we will, of course, accept one from maybe an employer in the health-related field, or maybe someone you interned under, maybe a high school science teacher or a math teacher, high school guidance teacher, or even a graduate assistant, particularly from a math or science area. But ultimately, find somebody, in a professional or scholarly setting that knows you well and can speak to your abilities. I would highly suggest not to use a family member or a friend or anything like that, but, do the best you can do. Once we have those 3 components, your application becomes complete, and then it can be viewed by the program site. So another common question is like, well, what's the order? How should I do this? It really doesn't matter the order. So that means you could submit your documents first and then submit your application, or, get your transcript in, submit your app. It doesn't really matter. The only thing I would suggest is before you have any documents sent over to us, please be sure to at least start your application. So if we get your transcript, we can add it in for you. And it would even be better if you had that section filled out. So let's say you want to take your time for your personal statement over, the holidays. I would definitely suggest that. It's a great time to do it. But you want to have your transcript sent in now. It would be nice. It's best if you have that school filled out and the information, or your recommendation filled out. So when we get it, we can just boom, pop it onto your unsubmitted application. And then once you submit, it actually gets complete automatically. Let's go over sending things into us. As I mentioned before, we'll need an official transcript from every college or university you attended or are currently enrolled. We added a new feature this year, or option rather, that you can have them emailed in. And then of course you can still have them mailed in if your school only does by mail. The only thing is make sure that you follow the deadline. The deadline is February 5th. So that means it would have to be postmarked or timestamped by that deadline. And another key point is it really has to come from the registrar's office. So whatever you do, don't email it to yourself and then email it to us, or, mail it to yourself and then mail it to us. Make sure it actually gets sent from your actual registrar office. So kind of like I just mentioned a minute ago, keep it, don't forward us any email, or don't forward us any transcripts or email us anything. It will have to be official, no screenshots, no, unofficial transcripts sent to us. And another point, we only take one copy of each transcript. So example, let's say you're a sophomore, you've already sent in your transcript and it's applied to your application. What you're not allowed to do is in the spring, send another copy, because we're only gonna take the first copy. So save your time and money. Don't send us an updated transcript. And then of course, before you have anything sent, make sure it has your grades on there, or, anything that needs to be recorded, so you don't waste your money and time as well. So back to letters of recommendation, we talked about who, now how. So you pick a recommender. They can do one of two things. They could either fill out a form, which is available on the application dashboard, or you can go to our website, it's there. Or they could actually write you their own letter, which is totally fine. If they do the second one, just make sure it's on an official letterhead. And then, this year it's signed. We'll be, and it's signed. This year will be a little bit more lenient because we understand not everyone has access to printers and scanners and everything. But just try to follow this format as best as possible. You can include the first page of the recommendation form, which has your information on it, but it's not 100% necessary either. As long as we know it's you, we can apply it to your application, we'll figure it out. And then of course, we highly recommend email. It's just easier to retrieve it. And then if they need an actual physical address, they're able to mail it as well. We'll take both. Just some tips that we have. Always, always, always tell them an earlier deadline than the actual real deadline. It's best if they send it. And then if you were to fill out the application now, let's say, and then you find out your recommender can't write one for you, you can't actually update it on your submitted application. So you can just send us an email with the new name of your recommender, and we'll go ahead and update that for you on your behalf. So another part of the application is the personal statement section. This is very, very important. Like sites, all program sites read this. This is like your time to shine. Why do you want to do this program? Why are you interested in healthcare? You definitely want to take time on this section. So. And we have some more tips. When I said take your time, definitely take your time, but also have someone double check, read it over. There is a character count, so you probably won't physically be able to go over the 600 words. It's more of a character, but it's about a page long. You know, talk about yourself, why you want to do the program. We also suggest maybe kind of writing it out, take a break, mental break, come back maybe a day later or so, kind of review it. And then of course you want to talk about diversity in healthcare. It's one of our missions of the program. So, and then in red, we have here this statement. So if you, as you know, as I mentioned in the beginning of when I was talking about the website, if you're applying to multiple health profession tracks, so again, this is if you're interested in medicine and maybe optometry, remember, you know, if you're going to select to apply as an optometry track, to talk about optometry, just don't talk about medical the whole time. Remember to mix both of it, or at the very least talk about health professions. So, you know, everyone's who's reading your personal statement realizes that you want to be in that track. So we're going to go over some timelines and some key dates. So obviously the application's open. You can get started now. We close at February 5th at 11:59 p.m. Eastern time. The Eastern time is very important. So again, with the time zones, make sure you know when the application will close. You know, West Coast is 3 hours behind us. You know, just be sure you know at what time the application will close so you're not there late at night trying to submit and then it's already closed. Once the deadline is done, we cannot take your application anymore. It doesn't matter if you have your materials in, we can't open it back up for you. So it's really important that you make a note this is an Eastern deadline and make sure you submit by that time. Your materials, however, they just have to be postmarked or timestamped. So that means it either needs to be in the mail or at least emailed by this February 5th deadline. Another key date you want to mark on your calendar is March 15th. This is decision day. It's exciting. You know, so any application that's completed will have a decision on March 15th. After that, there's another important date that's on our website as well, which is March 17th. So this is 2 days after the decision day. And this is actually when waitlist applicants can see a change in their application, like the status. So either be not accepted or still waitlisted or accepted. So that's another key date to mark down. And then once you're actually accepted and you confirm at a site, the program site you are going to be going to or, you know, participating at will start emailing you and further contact with them. So we talked about like checking our application for these, you know, our status. So I wanted to show you what it looks like. So you actually, once you submit an application, you'll see this screen and you can see, you know, submitted everywhere. This is step one. You know, this is good, but it's not great. We want completed. So how we're actually going to check our status after this is we can click on this view details section. So once we click on that, you'll see this screen. And so you have a couple different statuses you'll see. So we know that it's not complete yet, but we do know we submitted. So if we look at like our transcript section and reference, we can actually see the status of that. So you're going to see a couple things. You'll either see not yet received, received in processing, and then of course green, received and verified. Your goal is green. You want everything to be green in this part. If you see received in processing, that's good, but it doesn't mean it's actually been applied to your account. So you want to watch this and you want to make sure that this is going to change to received and verified. If it has been several days, business days, 10 max, you want to contact us immediately if it hasn't changed to received and verified. That means like we have it, but for some whatever reason it didn't get on your account. We process things by hand, so mistakes can be made. So you just want to watch these statuses, and if you still, you know, if your recommender said they sent it on this day and it's still saying not yet received, it's been 10 business days, go ahead and give us a call. We'll check on it. You want to be very proactive in this stage of the application. kind of what I just went over, but the only one I did not was unofficial. So, you know, on the previous page, you can see any of these three statuses of your materials, but you also might see an unofficial. If you get an unofficial, that pretty much means that, you know, for example, your transcripts, you sent them in, or you sent us unofficial like printouts or a screenshot or something of that nature. And we marked it unofficial because it's not the official copy we need. You actually get an email when this happens too, but you definitely want to check your account just in case your email gets blocked, things like that. And just another note on this is you can only see that those previous screens I just mentioned is when you submit your application. So prior to submitting, let's say you sent your transcript in and your recommendation, but you're going to take your time on your personal statement and the application itself. If you want to see that we have it and it's on your account and you have not submitted, you can call us or email us and we'll tell you, yes, it's on there, everything's good to go. Once you submit and you have your stuff, your documents in, your application gets automatically completed. So, and then it gets sent over the sites and you'll receive an email once this happens as well. So as I mentioned, let's look, you know, the first step was submitted. Let's look at a completed app. When you log in, it's going to be this screen and you'll see completed instead of submitted. And then once you hit the view details section, see that green, you're going to see, you want to see this. And then at the bottom, it's yellow. It should be green, but it's yellow. It says in review. So that's exciting. That means you're done. You just wait for March 15th. You can log in and see your results on that day. But until you see, you know, transcripts are received and verified and reference, you know, you got to keep checking and working that through. So overall application tips, we do recommend applying early. Once your application is completed, it gets sent over to the sites. Now, that does not mean that your chances are necessarily like increased if you apply early. It's really just for peace of mind because a lot of people apply during the deadline and we receive quite a bit of documents and it's just a lot of anxiety. And you remember, it's a small group processing this, so it's not going to be updated right away. So just to help things, you know, if you can get at least your documents in earlier, it's just so much more smoother. Again, follow up with your professor, you know, your recommender, make sure that they get that in. You don't want to miss your application. Be a part of the program because your recommendation didn't get in time. And then I plead with you, don't forward your transcripts, have your school do it every time. It's quick, easier, saves a lot of headache. So, you know, we kind of going back to the date of March 15th. And, you know, at the previous slide or the couple slides before about your completed app, you would log in March 15th and look at your results on that day. Now, another key point, and we'll send out another reminder closer to the March 15th date, but you actually have 2 business days to confirm your acceptance at the program site. Now, what happens is sometimes you might get accepted to one and then maybe waitlist at another, and like students would like to wait, but that actually isn't going to change before you get withdrawn. So you can do it whatever you'd like, but if you don't make that 2 business deadline, you will be pulled from that site and you will take your chances on the wait list. And if you do confirm at the site that accepted you, you get pulled from the wait list on the other site. So it's one or the other. If you are on a wait list, you would start March 17th reviewing to see if you got accepted, or every day to see if you got accepted or not until it changes. And I will turn it back to Tony.
Thank you, Stephanie. You know, thank you for going over all of that application stuff. You know, as far as being an applicant, I can imagine how much that is to navigate right now, especially with everything that's going on with COVID, right? With all these physical distancing guidelines and things like that. You know, the most important thing is to make sure that our scholars are applying, but making sure that they also have a safe experience. That being said, SHPEP this year will again be a 100% virtual experience in 2021. Tonight, we're joined here by Yasmin, who I'll allow her to introduce herself right now.
Hi, my name's Yasmin. I did SHPEP over the summer of 2020, so I did it virtually, and I did it at the University of Alabama at Birmingham, and I was on the medical track. So that's a little about me.
Thank you. And you know what, Yasmin? Help us map out your journey in becoming a scholar. You found out that you were accepted into the program, and then, bam, COVID happened. We then announced that the program would be implemented virtually. What were your immediate thoughts about participating in a virtual program?
Yeah, so we got accepted around like mid-March, and then everything shut down around mid-March too. So there was the panic of adjusting to a global pandemic, and then also the panic of, oh my gosh, what's going to happen over the summer? So they told us it would be virtual. And, of course, we were all a little bit hesitant because there was always that in-person shadowing and simulation, and nobody really knew what was going on. So we were all just trying to adjust. But I really, really, really wanted to do the program. So I knew that I was going to do it no matter what. And that's why I decided to be a scholar. And then I also knew that UAB was sending us updates and telling us that they were going to do everything to the best of their ability. So, I trusted them. And then again, I really wanted to be in the program. So that's why I decided to do it, even though it was virtual. And now I'm an ambassador for the program.
Perfect. And you know what? Being an ambassador for the program now and helping to promote this virtual program for others, this must mean that it made a tremendous impact on you. Tell us about what type of impact this program has had on you.
So I think the biggest impact was just the people that you'll meet through the program. Of course, they're going to give you a lot of information about the field that you want to go into, and then they also give you a lot of academic information that'll apply to like chemistry, anatomy courses you'll take in the future. But the biggest impact that it had on me was my peers. So even though it was virtual, like we all made this group meet and we still talk through it and kind of just try to update each other and like send out opportunities to each other if we think somebody in some kind of track might be interested in it. So I think that had been the biggest impact on me. And then also being able to depend on UAB mentors and faculty and staff. They were all just so helpful. They knew that we were doing this in a pandemic, so we obviously had a lot on our minds, but we were also passionate and dedicated to being in a health professional field that we wanted to do this program. And I think it just came across in our enthusiasm and flexibility, just willing to work with each other. It was just nice because we were so understanding of each other's situation, like between the faculty and between the students and between like peers in general.
That's amazing. And I heard you say group me. How did you interact with the students and staff? And tell me a little bit more about your instructors and mentors.
Yeah, so for our students and staff, we mostly interacted just through email, or we saw each other on Zoom every day. So we would use the Zoom chat or just talk through Zoom and that kind of stuff. But for like each other, our classmates, we all made this group me. And so that would just be constantly blowing up throughout the summer if we would like send funny things in there or talk about our classes a little bit. Like it was just nice because we still had that same sense of connection that maybe it would have been a little bit stronger if it was in person and we could see each other face to face, but it was still nice to know like you still had friends even though they were on the other side of the screen. We actually made the group me before the program had even started. So we were talking through the group me, and then once we started introducing ourselves like through Zoom, we were like, oh, we're putting faces to names now. That's how this is going to work. Um, so yeah, that's how it was as far as connections that we had. And then talking about our instructors, they were understanding as well. So we had different types of instructors. We had speakers that would come in and just talk about their field of interest. So either somebody from the diversity office, somebody from like social work, somebody from different health professional tracks. And then we had our instructors that went over course materials. So statistics, anatomy, physiology, OChem, biochem, stuff like that in general. So for the course material, they would record themselves talking and basically doing the instructing, and we would watch it afterward and take a mini quiz on it. And just the fact that they took time out of their day and spoke slowly and clearly. And even if we did have any questions, we could email them and ask them about it. So that was nice. And it also helped because I had just taken biochem like last semester. So I had taken biochem after doing the course, and some stuff was lining up for me. So it was nice to have that experience where it was kind of pre-taught to me. And then as far as speakers go, they were really interactive. So they always told us that if we had any questions, we could just raise our hands and they would call on us, or we could type anything in the chat. And of course, it wasn't serious all the time. It was really engaging, and they cracked a couple of jokes too. So that was nice.
Perfect, perfect. I'm going to switch gears a little bit because, 2020 has been a really tough year, as far for many, we've had a pandemic where, we can't interact the way we normally interact. Also, we had a lot of racial issues that came to the forefront this summer. How was it being, a scholar in this program while dealing with the pandemic and all the racial issues that came up front?
Yeah, so I think it was just a lot of stress all around, like um, protests in the middle of a pandemic. It was honestly pretty scary because nobody knew what was going to happen. But again, we just depended on each other and we just kept communicating through that group me. I think it happened while we were still in the program, like it was within our program date. So in our group me's, like we would just offer each other like a helping hand, or just listen to each other and talk things out and offer our support in general. So it was nice having that community where we could really like band together and talk about these issues and talk about what we hope is to come for the future. And then also just kind of a release, because we were all in the same shoes. We were all kind of dealing with the same thing, to talk to each other and be able to listen. It really just strengthened our bond to each other. So I'm really grateful to have those people to talk to.
Perfect. Were you able to interact with the staff regarding these issues as well that were going on in the forefront, as far as like, at your program site, like what were some of those discussions like?
Yeah, so we definitely had guest lecturers come in, like I said, and they talked to us about diversity a lot. And then that kind of bled into what was going on in the world. And so we talked a little bit about those protests and like biases in the medical field, and just talking to each other.
Thank you for sharing that. That was, really impactful. The fact that our program sites were there and they wanted to make sure that each student got the assistance that they needed and made sure that they had mentorship there, I think, speaks about while participating in the program.
I think my most memorable moment was saying goodbye. It's kind of bittersweet because that program had been going on for like a month and a half, and you really get to know these people. Like you're spending a lot of your day with them every day, your entire summer. And so it was just nice because we went around and we talked about like what we really appreciated from the program and like what we were trying to do in the future. And so being able to talk to each other and again, just listening to each other reminisce basically about the entire program was, it was bittersweet because I hadn't known them very long, but just the impact that everybody had made was so big.
Amazing, amazing. Now, I know tonight we're joined, by many applicants and many pre-health advisors as well. And, one of the questions that I think they really want answered is, how were the lab activities? How was that piece of the program?
Yeah, so that was something I was hesitant about too when I realized that this was all going to be online. Um, but it was nice because UAB really did hold true to their promise where they said that they were going to try to make everything as real as it could be. So they sent out online simulations to us, and we were split into small groups. So we would work through these simulations together, and then again, like in this big Zoom group, we would talk about it and what we learned and kind of what we went through. So I remember one of these simulations was about you would pretend to be somebody basically, and then kind of go through life and make a series of decisions and kind of find out where you ended up. So it was just an activity to put yourself in somebody else's shoes and just see like what curveballs life could throw at you and how well you could handle them with the amount of financial or like community support that you had. And that was really just to build our empathy and then our view of the world too, because everybody comes from so many different journeys and you can't like possibly understand what everybody goes through if you aren't going through it yourself.
Thank you for sharing that. I think another thing a lot of students want to know right now is, what was the daily schedule like? Like what was the day to day?
Yeah, so the day to day was, it was around like 9 to 10 a.m. where we woke up, did our activities, and then all of that continued to around 4 to 5 p.m. So it was kind of like a regular school day. And then UAB would just adjust the schedule as necessary. Um, it was really flexible too, because sometimes things would come up. And again, it's their first time doing an online program. So we all just had to adjust in general. Um, but yeah, it was just a full day of whatever they had planned for us, like if guest lecturers were to come in or if we were arranging meetings with our mentors. I know UAB sent us out like a little color coded schedule so we could see what we were doing at every moment of the day. And then after that, we would either like go about whatever we had to do for that day or watch the academic coursework our instructors sent.
Amazing, amazing, amazing. Thank you for sharing that. I'm gonna go on ahead. I think at this point, we're gonna interact with the audience. I invite Stephanie to come back and join us. And I'm gonna facilitate the question and answer section as well. Now, Yasmin, I want to ask you this question right here. Um, you know, what would you recommend for a freshman student that's interested in the program but doesn't have many connections, but they still need to ask for that letter of recommendation? How did you go about asking for your letter of recommendation? And how did you go about building connections and things like that?
So I asked for my letter of recommendation for my pre-health advisor. And that was mostly because I had gotten to know my pre-health advisor pretty well since I was in her office a lot asking questions, since I didn't know anything about like how to become a doctor and be on that medical track. So I just wanted to make sure I wasn't doing anything wrong. So I felt like she knew me pretty well and my letter of recommendation came from her. But my advice in general would be to get letters of recommendation is to go to office hours and just show the professors that you care about their material and kind of introduce yourself a little bit. Let them know why you took this class, what is most interesting to you, and just have a conversation with them about it, because most of the time people go to office hours is to either like ask about their grade or because they're stressed out about something. So it could be really nice if you go in and you're just having a relaxing conversation with your professor. I think they'll appreciate it too.
I agree. Around this time right now, you want to be able to build as many connections as possible. And I know, right now, the obstacle as far as right now is that everything is done virtually. So how do you go about building that connection? Please send an email to your pre-health advising office. Try to get to know that staff and that team. You know, at the end of the day, you know, rather you want to be, you know, a medical doctor, you know, if you want to be a physical therapist, you know, they're typically there. They're that mentorship, and they provide, I guess, the backbone of what it is to, and they have the ins and outs in order to apply to get to those programs, right? You know, a lot of these pre-health advisors have, you know, throughout these times have built connections with not only, you know, other pre-health advising offices for support, but also medical school admissions officers as well. So, you know, gaining their insight and building a relationship with them, you know, and putting yourself out there, you know, I think will really go a long way. Now, Stephanie, I have a question for you. I know we touched a little bit on the eligibility requirements earlier in the application, you know, during the presentation. Do you have to be a certain major to apply to SHPEP?
No, not at all. You can be any major at this time. I know we said like a guideline is to get, you know, a field advisor or someone in your major, which could still work for your major, you know. But we welcome anyone who's interested in the health professions, as long as you're a freshman and sophomore with 60 credits or less.
Perfect. I'm going to go on ahead and take the next question right now. Is the program open to community college students? And the answer to that is yes. You can apply as a community college student. You must be a freshman or sophomore, and of course, you must be a high school graduate. You know, you could, when we talk about as far as credit maximum, it's a 60 credit max. You can only have a maximum of 60 credits to apply for the program, but AP credits are not counted within that total. So I just want to make sure that that's clear as well. Stephanie, I have another question to you as well, for you. How can students designate which site they're applying to within their application?
So on the application, there's an actual tab that says, I believe, program sites, if I'm not mistaken. And then from there, you'll also see the filtering section too, but you would select the program site, or you can select it by the health profession, and it will show which ones offer that. And we highly suggest you choose 3 from there. And I think I think there was another question I saw earlier in the chat, but I can answer it right now. You can, as I mentioned previously, you can apply to different health tracks, but you cannot apply to multiple health tracks at one site. So for example, if you were, you know, I brought up the example of optometry and medicine. So you would need to find the site that offers optometry. You can apply to it that way, and then you can apply to medicine for the other 2, or maybe 2 optometry, 1 medicine. But what you can't do is optometry medicine at the same site. So, but it's all in the application, and you would select your 3 there.
Okay. So one other question we have here is this program offered exclusively to college freshmen and sophomore students? Are there any programs for graduate students? As you know, for the SHPEP, you must be a college freshman or sophomore in order to apply. Within the chat, I'll be sharing, you know, if you're not eligible for SHPEP, a couple of other resources in order for you to, you know, maybe gain experience. So like that, you can then matriculate into the school that you want to get into. I'll share that now. I have a question. Give me one moment. So Stephanie, this question is for you as well. So each location we will apply to will read the same personal statement, even if we're applying to different health profession tracks. Is that true? Is that false? And can you kind of give more insight into that as far as like certain tips that they should do in order to write their personal statement?
Yes. So remember, you do 1 application and it gets sent to 3 sites. So they're going to see the same information that you input on this 1 application. You're only allowed to have 1 application. So whatever you're writing about, it's going to be, you know, regardless if you do, if you apply to different schools of different health professions, they're going to see the same personal statement. So that's why we suggest that in your personal statement, you talk about, you know, why you want to do this, why you want to do the program. And if you're kind of deviating from just one health profession track, then make sure you speak to it. So if the, you know, optometry track person is reading your application, they go, oh, not only are they interested in optometry, but they're also interested in medicine, you know, kind of just make sure you speak about it there.
Thank you, Steph.
Okay.
So, Yasmin, I have a question for you. How many hours a day is the time commitment? Can you kind of go over that for us one more time, just as far as your specific site and how they did things?
Yeah, sure. So for us, like I said, it was different every day, but it was probably like an average of 7 to 8 hours on a Zoom call. And then after that, you got to decide how to split up your time for just doing the quizzes. There were like 5 to 7 quizzes due at the end of the week. So it was your responsibility to watch the videos and then do the quizzes, and you could split that up however you would like, but your really only time commitment was around like 7 to 8 hours that you had to be synchronous with the Zoom call.
Thank you. So Stephanie, could you go over stipends with us really quickly? Students want to know if they'll still receive one if it's done virtually, and they kind of want to know logistics as far as like where they can specifically find how each program site administers that stipend.
So that's going to be on the program site page, the page I highlighted earlier in the presentation. Each site is going to give you the same amount, and they're also giving you a food subsidy that they can discuss once you're accepted. But so if you want to learn more about the stipend, you would just go to their program site page, and then most of them have their payment schedule in which they would give you the funds and how they do that. And we'll go in our second webinar, we're going to have program sites also joining us, and they can go into a little bit further, but it's going to vary from site to site on how and when they pay you. But they do get your information before. So they basically, when you start the program, they want to get things rolling. So you get your first check this week, you know, it just depends on the actual program site on how they do it. But as I mentioned, for most sites, they outlined it on their page, and you can always email them or contact them for more information on how that goes about. And it will be $600 this year, and then plus a food subsidy.
Thank you, Stephanie.
You're welcome.
Yasmin, I have a question for you. How many classes does one take if accepted to the program? You're on mute.
Yeah. So for that, we had just a variety of academic courses. So I know we got an option to choose between OChem and Biochem, and I had already taken OChem, so I would have done the coursework for Biochem. But there were really no restrictions that you had to take a certain amount. I know that if you asked UAB to take OChem and Biochem together, they would definitely let you, and you could have access to all the course materials if you wanted. As far as what courses there was anatomy and then physiology, OChem, biochem, statistics, and I think that's it. I don't know if I'm missing one.
Thank you. We appreciate it. I think you hit all of them though.
Okay.
As far as 2021, I'll take this question. 2021 is a 100% virtual program. Does it mean we participate from home, or do we have to travel to the campus and do online? You will be doing this from the comfort of your own home. You know, what we did last year, just to kind of give insight as to how we, you know, implemented the virtual program, is we sent this survey to each scholar, you know, who was accepted and confirmed at our program sites, you know, just to see if they had any connectivity issues, any accessibility issues as far as laptops. So, you know, once we figured that out and we surveyed each student, we then shared that information with our program sites Now, if there was a specific scholar who could not, who did not have the amenities in order to participate virtually, we reached out to the scholar and we made sure that they had those amenities in order to participate virtually. I want to go on ahead and let's see what other questions we have here. Yasmin, I have a good question for you. How can we stand out in our personal statement?
Good question. I think just writing about your personal experiences, and like saying why you're passionate about whatever track you want to be on, and then just tying that in with a specific moment that made you feel that way, because really everybody's experiences are different. And I think if they just get a repetitive like, oh, I want to do this because I want to help people, that's a pretty generic answer. So if you would just explain on that a little bit more and then tie in a bit of your personal experience into there, I feel like it could make a really good personal statement. Really put the personal in personal statement.
Nice. And you know what? Curious minds want to know, what's your undergrad major and institution?
Oh, yeah. I'm a neuroscience major. I'm a junior neuroscience major, and I go to UT Austin. So hook 'em horns.
I'm rapid fire with you right now, Yasmin. So it's back to back to back. How long does asynchronous work take day to day?
Well, I split it up. So I would do about 30 minutes to an hour a day for 5 days. And then I would just take my quizzes at the end of the week.
So I have another question. Again, rapid fire.
Sure.
Is it so students want to know, is it doable to do an online class, or is it suggested to take an online class while participating in this program? Like, could we speak to that a little bit? And I'd like to chime in on that one as well after you. I'll follow up a little bit and fill in the gaps.
Yeah, so that's a good question. I remember a lot of people had signed up for online classes too. So we were all in the group me like asking each other, do you think 6 hours is doable? I took 3 hours over the summer, and you just have to make sure that it doesn't overlap with your SHPEP responsibilities. But other than that, I think it's definitely doable depending on what class you took. I took physics, so and that was okay for me. So it's just really a personal choice, and just to make sure that the times don't conflict. It's all about what you can handle.
Cool. I have nothing to add. I just want to say you answered that beautifully. Now as far as as we go through these questions, Stephanie, I want to bring you back in right now. If you're a pre-health but not bio or chem major, is it still recommended to get a letter of recommendation from your major advisor?
A lot of people they fret on this section of the application. I think if you have a good rapport with, someone in the college setting who's, of course your professor, that would be a fine recommendation to have. I would definitely use them. If you were in high school and you had a really good rapport with, your high school science or math teacher, we would use that. I mean, it's your discretion, but pick somebody who ultimately knows you well, can speak to your abilities as an applicant, and can write you a nice recommendation. The sites do read this section of the application.
Okay. Yasmin, students want to know, if you could speak about the clinical experience and how that was done virtually.
Yeah, so for the clinical experience, it was just in our lectures. So we would have people coming in from like dental, medical, the other tracks, they're like slipping my mind right now, but they would basically come in and just bring us materials that they used in their everyday lives, or like patient cases too. And they would show us like different things that they used. And then from that, we would all just talk about it and try to diagnose the patient and just talk through it a little bit. So it was kind of like more of a personal experience too, because you were directly interacting with them and it was kind of like a question and answer type thing. So that's how our clinical experience worked. And then of course, like the simulations that we did that I talked about a little.
Thank you. Stephanie, I got a really good one for you. So you remember earlier how we talked about a 60 credit maximum. We want to know if dual enrollment credits that are earned during high school, are those credits counted? And, you know, what if somebody has maybe just a little bit over that credit maximum, you know, should they still apply?
So the first part of that question, yes. Dual enrollment means that you're actually dually enrolled into a college. So those are considered college credits. We do pass for AP because you're getting college credit for the actual class, but you're still in high school. So you're going to count those to your overall. Now, if you're a little bit over the max, sometimes sites will like kind of still review your application. So what I always suggest is kind of reaching out to the program sites you're interested in applying to and kind of getting their feedback. Because just you know, an announcement, the program office, you know, where me, Tony work and stuff, we don't actually review applications. The program sites you apply to are going to be doing all the review for your application. So they're going to be ones ultimately deciding.
Perfect. Yasmin, I have a good question for you right here. What did you talk about in your personal statement? And how were you able to build, how did you tell your story?
Good question. So I want to be a doctor. So I talked about medicine and just kind of like my personal experiences in it. And then I talked about how I used to work as an EMT. So I had a specific experience from that I drew on and then tied it together with my personal experience and just kind of ended with why I wanted to be in this SHPEP program and why I think it would be a good fit for me. And then what I hope to do in the future, like as a doctor. So was basically like my personal statement.
Good, thank you. So I'll take this question right here. It says, can students participate in SHPEP twice? And the answer to that is no. Students can only participate in this program one time. And the reason for that is because we want to give each student the opportunity to grow and develop into, you know, that health professional that they are aspiring to be. So could you imagine if the same people got in the same program over and over again? You know, not everyone would have that opportunity to really participate. Stephanie, I have a question for you. Are students accepted on a rolling basis, or are all the applications collectively evaluated?
So once you complete your application, it is viewable to the sites. Now, with that being said, each site is supposed to review all applications. So it's not necessarily that they may, you know, some sites kind of have different processes on how they review applications, but it's not a rolling admission. No, if you submit your app, we've had several, even like I'm part of our alumni ambassadors who submitted their application like the deadline and still got in, you know, so each site is required to review your application.
Stephanie, I have another question for you. Is the physician assistant program offered this year for SHPEP?
So unfortunately, the actual track, no, it hasn't been offered for a year or two now, unfortunately. But the good thing is that we are very unprofessional, as I mentioned before. So a lot of sites still kind of go, you know, you still get some exposure to that health field. Particularly one, I believe like UAB, they do some exposure, University of Florida, and I think Western too. But you can also, you know, review the program site page, as I mentioned before, and see if you're kind of interested in that field. And you could still maybe apply as like medicine or something like that, and then see if they offer any kind of exposure
to PA.
Now, Yasmin, you were accepted into the medicine track, right? So could you speak to like, the interprofessionalism of the program, and what else did you learn? Was it just strictly medicine? Just to kind of give people a sense of, that interprofessionalism.
Yeah, so at one point in the program, we did get split up into our respective tracks, like just to learn a little bit more about them. And then we did also like do some one-on-ones with like medical mentors or dental mentors, just people like that. But other than that, we all listened to the same lectures. So whatever, if it was like medical, dental, PA, anything like that, we all listened to the same things and had the same experiences. The only times that we were split up was if it was something like specifically pertaining to our track and our field, or if it was going to be talking about our personal experiences and what we wanted to accomplish in the future. But other than that, it was pretty integrated. They really wanted to like give each of us a taste of every kind of health profession track. So, just in case we found something that might be more interesting, we could explore it some more too.
Thank you for that. I think a lot of people are interested to hear about your experience with Zoom. Did you ever experience Zoom fatigue, or did you ever feel burnt out? Like, let's speak to that a little bit.
Yeah, so there was definitely some Zoom fatigue. I think we all experienced it just because we were on a laptop for like 7 to 8 hours a day. But then we also communicated that to like UAB faculty and staff. And again, it was their first time doing it too. So they didn't really think about like the Zoom fatigue and just things that could out of nowhere. But once we communicated that, they would give us like 5 to 15-minute breaks between each session and just be like, turn the computer off, rest your eyes, walk around a little bit and come back, and we'll start the next session. So that was nice too. I think if you like start to experience Zoom fatigue, definitely take care of yourself. If you have to, rest your eyes a little bit, but then also communicate it like to whoever is in charge or whoever you feel like you need to tell, and just be like, hey, I might need to shut the laptop off for like 5 minutes or something and take a walk, if that's okay. They're really understanding, so they'll like accommodate to you.
Perfect. Now, one of the things with Zoom, right, that a lot of people want to know too is, did you have a dress code? Like, did you have to wear a certain thing? Did you have to, like, how was that like?
So there wasn't a dress code, but you had to dress like decently, like how you would if you were to go to class or something. You couldn't just come in your pajamas, but it wasn't like business formal or anything like that. And then also when we started doing like mock interviews for that, you would have to dress business formal because you were basically imitating an interview. So they wanted to help get you prepared for that kind of mindset and dress code and stuff like that. But other than that, they didn't really regulate what you had to wear. There wasn't anything strict.
Thank you. Now, I'll take this question here. It says, can you apply if you're not a minority student? Yes, you can still apply to the program even if you're not a minority student. We honestly, we do have, we do want to make sure that each student has the fair chance. And again, this program was initially started in 1989, to increase diversity within the health profession, within medicine, and now we're trying to increase diversity within the health professions. Now, there are different aspects of that, whether you come from either a low socioeconomic background or anything like that, you come from a disadvantaged background, if you feel that you fall under those categories, yes, you can apply. But even if you don't, you can still apply for the program as well. Our program sites, again, want to hear your story, want to hear your distance traveled as well. Yasmin, I have a question for you. How did you know the program was right for you?
Well, I knew that I wanted to go into medical, so I kind of just chose that track for myself based on like life experiences and who I am. But as far as the program site, I kind of researched like what sites were close to me. And then I also researched facilities. And I knew that UAB was big on research and diversity. And that's the kind of medical school that I'm looking to go to as well. So that's why I applied to UAB. I don't know if
Thank
that
you.
answers the question.
I think it does.
Okay.
Now, as far as I'm still going through these questions right here. I just want to make sure we get to as many as possible.
Hey, Tony.
Hey, Stephanie, how?
Oh,
Yeah,
sorry. I
no,
was just gonna
you have it.
jump in and answer one that I keep seeing kind of recurring is a couple things about transcripts. The first one is we do not need your high school transcripts. Do not send those in. We don't need it. You just fill out where you went to high school, but we don't actually need it. The second part with the transcripts is yes, if you've attended that college or university, regardless if it was in high school, you still have to list it on your application and then you'll have to get the transcript sent in for it. Just wanted to clear that up because I saw a few questions about that in the chat.
Perfect. Thank you, Steph. I appreciate that, definitely. Now, one of the questions we are getting a lot is, how are medical schools or just, health professions programs, how are they going to evaluate programs like SHPEP, right? And I think that's one question that's on the top of everyone's mind, with everything being different, how are things being evaluated? Now, Stephanie, you can feel free to fill in any gaps if I miss any, but I definitely want to make sure that we have a full and concise answer, being that we have a bunch of pre-health advisors on the line and things like that. What I will say, I'll start out by saying this: medical schools are very much aware that we are in a pandemic and that shadowing opportunities are not readily available and things like that. That's where I first want to start out with. Now, as far as programs like SHPEP and things like that, medical schools and at least the admissions counselors that I've spoken to, are finding that students showing the initiative, because that's basically what they want to see during this application process. Like, how important is becoming a doctor or a physical therapist or a physician assistant to a student? And what did they do in order to get those types of experiences given what's going on in the pandemic? Now, if we look at the distance traveled again, and you see that student story, make sure that, hey, this will be part of that process, and how they tell that story, is going to be critical. Students, if you're listening, the one thing I will advise is that you speak with a pre-health advisor to figure out how to tell your story through and how to really detail all of your experiences through your application to make sure that it's a fully concise and impactful application and that you're getting and conveying the correct message across. Now, I do want to ask, and I'm still going through the questions right now, but that was one question I personally saw that kept coming up over and over again. Stephanie, I have a question for you. If you apply for the program and are not accepted, can you apply again?
The answer is yes, depending on if you're still eligible, and that would mean that you are a freshman and then you don't get accepted and then you would apply again as a sophomore. Of course, so you get 2 chances to apply to this program, basically.
Perfect. Yasmin, I have a good question for you. It's here. Do you feel like you've made good connections with your mentors to get potential recommendations for your future?
Yeah, I definitely feel like I have. In particular, one of the UAB staff, she is on like the diversity panel and then also on like a medical admissions panel. And I asked her to come to speak for an organization that I have back at like my own school. And she actually came and we organized this event where she would come and present just about UAB and the medical track and then just answer questions. So that was nice too. And then like a week or 2 back, we had kind of like a SHPEP catch up thing. So again, we got on the Zoom call and we would all just talk to each other and kind of see what we were up to and how the semester went. So it's definitely like long lasting connections. And these are the kind of people that you could email and be like, hey, I don't really know what to do. Can you help me? So it's just nice having those mentors in your life.
Perfect. And I have two more questions for you, and I think we'll wrap it up and call it, you know, a night. So I did see this question come across, and I'm going to add to it as well, right? It says, could you go over the health policy aspect of the program? But I also would like to hear not only the health policy part, but the financial planning workshops that you've attended as well.
Yeah, so for those, as I said, we had a lot of speakers come in and talk to us about various things. So for health policy and everything like that, we had speakers come in and talk to us about diversity, and then just talk to us about what's going on in the world and kind of staying current and trying to shape us as like human beings that are being made into like going into the health professions as a career, and kind of just how you're lifelong learners basically. And then also talking about our mental health as well. And the financial aspect was helpful too, because they went into a lot of like loan talk and just going on into what budgeting is and how you do that and just how you handle debt, because graduate school is expensive. So we all kind of needed to have that conversation as well.
And last but not least, what does the future hold for you? Now that you've participated in SHPEP and it's had an impact, you know, on what you ultimately want to do, tell us, what does the future hold? And based on the work that you've learned at SHPEP, based off the sessions and classes, like, how are you going to think about helping the community in the future?
Yeah, so I think like I liked SHPEP so much that I decided to apply to become an ambassador for it. So I think just letting people know about the program and how valuable it can be, and just answering any and all questions, that's kind of what the future holds. And then I'm also taking the MCAT in January to apply to medical school next cycle. So that's kind of exciting and nerve-wracking too. But as I said, I have an entire group me of people who are going through the same things and applying as well. So just having that and talking to them is kind of a nice stress relief as well. So yeah, that's currently what I'm doing.
Thank you. Stephanie, do you have anything to add before I close this out?
I think we did a pretty good job overall. Just take this is a great time, like I said, next couple of weeks, to kind of focus on your application itself, the personal statement, and get your materials in. I would just say that. And then, of course, if you have any questions, please contact us. You know, we have our number listed here, and then, of course, our email.
That's correct. Please email us. Please email us. Check our website. We have a lot of, you know, good information on our website if you need to learn more about the program. And please call us toll free. If you also want to, please connect with us on social media. You know, we post a lot of relevant and timely information just to kind of keep you up to date on everything that's going on with the program. And everyone, have a great evening. Pleasure to have this conversation with each and every one of you. Bye, everyone.
Bye. Good luck with your applications.
Bye.